And David Brinkley, NBC News, Washington. Vice President Humphrey stood with his bare toes in the sand on the New Jersey seacoast today and called Richard Nixon a fearless fosdick. He referred to Nixon's statements about law and order. Also, Humphrey charged that Nixon had made a deal with Senator Thurmond of South Carolina to block the nomination of Abe Fortas as Chief Justice in return for Thurmond's support. Well, here's how it was out there on the beach in New Jersey in a report from NBC News correspondent Don Oliver, followed by a comment from Senator Thurmond in Washington.
The Vice President decided this morning to take a stroll along the New Jersey shore near the ocean home of Governor Richard Hughes. He walked a while, threw a few clamshells into the sea, then stopped to talk a while about his opponent, Richard Nixon.
I believe you're beginning to see this campaign unfold. Already we've had our differences on foreign policy. Already we've had our differences relating that center around the nomination of Mr. Fortas, he is just a pivotal figure, central figure. The difference there, the issue there is the understanding, the arrangement that was made with Mr. Thurmond. And I think it's crystal clear that an arrangement was made. I noticed this morning that Mr. Nixon says that he attacks the courts again. I don't think any president of the United States is going to manage the courts. I hope not. For every jail Mr. Nixon wants to build, I'd like to build a house for a family that needs a decent house to live in a decent neighborhood. And for every policeman that he wants to hire, which I'd like to hire another good teacher. It isn't either or, it's both. And if Mr. Nixon was going to play fearless fosdick, that's his privilege.
Senator, Vice President Humphrey today called Richard Nixon a fearless fosdick and then went on to say that Nixon had made a deal with you to block the nomination of Abe Fortas. Would you comment on that claim?
Well, it's false. And Mr. Humphrey knows it's false. I opposed Mr. Fortas' nomination to be Associate Justice 3 years ago. I'm unalterably opposed to his confirmation as Chief Justice, and I would not be deterred by Mr. Nixon in this matter or anyone else. He has made no request to me about this matter, and I have made no request of him. I have read in the paper several times, I think, that his position is that it is a matter for the Senate, of which it is.
As for the fearless fosdick charge, if there's anyone who doesn't know, he is a comic strip detective who sometimes gets his man, but always by accident, and whatever he sets out to do, he usually makes a mess of it. Chet?
After 2 days of fighting, the enemy has been driven off at Tin Inh, which is one of the main infiltration routes to Saigon. But the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong have not left the area. Today, the enemy fired 600 shells into an American artillery base north of Tin Inh and then attacked, losing 57 men. There were no American deaths. At Loc Ninh, 121 enemy soldiers were killed by an American task force, but there the Americans paid a higher price, 14 men killed and 60 wounded. Czechoslovak Premier Chernik today did, reluctantly but stoically, what the Russians have made it necessary for him to do. He told Parliament that Czechoslovak people are faced with what he called a new reality, the Soviet occupation, and that they must bow to it. Then the Parliament passed measure after measure restricting public assembly and ending freedom of the press.
The Huntley-Brinkley Report is produced by NBC News and brought to you in color by Old Gold Filters. The best cigarette that ever came with a coupon has the best coupon that ever came with a cigarette.
You call this living? Some people don't think so. If you're independent, you'll find a better way, and a better tasting cigarette, perhaps. Old Gold Filters, the cigarette for independent people, with flavors that never came through a filter before. Old Gold Filters, now with gift star coupons.
The Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith charged today that a number of right-wing extremist groups, racists, and anti-Semites are active in George Wallace's presidential campaign. The organization said also it's preparing a report which will show that some electors pledged to Wallace are drawn from such groups as the Klan, the John Birch Society, the Liberty Lobby, and the Minutemen. In Cincinnati, Wallace told newsmen, "I don't consider myself a racist." Last night, Wallace campaigned in Milwaukee. Here, from contributing editor Douglas Kiker, is a report on his reception.
When George Wallace arrived at the Milwaukee City Auditorium last night, thousands of enthusiastic supporters were there waiting for him, but so was a large group of anti-Wallace demonstrators, and for a while it looked as if there might be trouble. The demonstrators were led by the Reverend James Greppy. Wallace was interrupted several times by the commotion, and this was his response.
That's just some of the free speech folks, all right. Let them get on television, and then they'll be our... You need a good haircut. A good barber could help you. You need a good haircut. These are the kind of folks that people are sick and tired of in this country all over the United States. And all I can say is that the anarchists in this country had better have their day now, because after November 5th, you are through. You're through in this country.
Before Wallace finished talking, the demonstrators left the hall to march on the streets outside. There were a few arrests last night, and a lot of bad words were passed, but nobody was hurt. What happened in Milwaukee, though, probably is a good indication of what is going to happen whenever George Wallace visits big cities anywhere outside the South this fall. Douglas Kiker, NBC News, Milwaukee.
Richard Nixon said in Cleveland today that a broadened war on poverty, as advocated by Vice President Humphrey, would be no substitute for a war on crime. The crime problem has been given major attention by all three candidates for president. In the first week of the campaign, they all spoke out on it in broad terms, and here is what they had to say.
We can talk about the necessity for law and order. We can pass laws. We can have better police and more police. But if the people who live in some of the great cities of our country have no hope, they have nothing to lose. They will explode.
We cannot solve any problem that faces our people unless first we have order. We cannot solve the problems of the large cities of our country unless we have stability and order.
The angry voices that seek to divide us, they must not be listened to. The haters and those that would divide us do not speak the heart of America.
For virtually everybody in this room, the American dream has come true. We've had an equal chance. We've moved up. But for millions, the American dream is a nightmare.
This nation has a great, silent, moderate majority within it. I'm going to talk to that moderate, silent majority. The vast preponderance of people believe neither in racism or repression, nor in revolution or in riot. They want to extend to every man and woman equal treatment, and they want to do it peacefully and lawfully.
We must light the lamp of hope in millions of homes tonight in which there is no light of hope. This is what we must do.
And one of the first things I think a new president ought to do is to give his moral support to the police and firemen in this country, and then ask the Congress... and then ask the American Congress to change some of the decisions of the court that have literally handcuffed the police in our nation and made them second-class citizens.
If you're going to rebuild the cities of America, if you're going to provide the jobs and the training for jobs that you need to be provided for those who do not have that kind of training, the great instrument of progress in America is private enterprise rather than government enterprise. We must enlist private enterprise in the job of rebuilding America.
I believe that we shall face our moment of truth. And I believe we're facing it now. And we can come through on the other side. The side that we've always wanted to be on and are on. The promise of this land. One nation under God, still indivisible, and with renewed devotion to liberty and to justice for all.
Do you know how to charge a battery, a set of spark plugs, a voltage regulator? Simple as signing your name with the one and only supercharger, a Phillips 66 credit card. With a Phillips 66 credit card, you can charge gasoline, oil, a battery, tires, windshield wipers, you name it. You can charge a nice big meal or a good night's sleep at any Best Western or Quality Courts motel. You can even rent a Hertz car with it. The supercharger lets you charge almost anything at more than 23,000 Phillips 66 stations, 1,000 marinas, and 400 airports in all 50 states. Get a supercharger application from any Phillips 66 dealer and charge something.
The New York City Teachers Union struck today for the second time this week. Only a few of the city's 900 schools were open, and only 22,000 of more than 1 million children attended school. Mayor John Lindsay gave up trying to settle the dispute and turned it over to the State Commissioner of Education. There were brief disorders at a few schools, and the chief issue is the determination of the local governing board of a Brooklyn school district to transfer 10 teachers out of the district, and the equal determination of the union not to permit it. In Chicago, Sidney Lenz, co-chairman of the National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, held a news conference today and attacked Mayor Richard Daley's report on the riots during the Democratic Convention.
Now, we believe that the mayor's report is the greatest piece of fantasy ever perpetrated on the people in this city and the nation. Part of the mayor's scenario is that we had some lovely police who were under restraint by Commissioner Connelliskin himself, who did nothing against these demonstrators, these wild hippies, until the very last moment when they no longer could tolerate the taunting against them. This report indicates, and these 4 men who are sitting with me, indicates that the police charged in military formation, and that they beat people with careless abandon. The most important, significant piece of evidence in this incident, in this series of incidents, is that most of the people that were beaten up were not arrested. Please ponder that point. Most of the people that were beaten up were not arrested. They were just told to beat people up. That was their purpose. In sum, our rebuttal is that the mayor is ascribing to us the sins that he committed, the organized effort to commit violence by the police of this city of Chicago, in order to create an atmosphere of terror against dissent.
The Federal Communications Commission today gave the television networks 20 days to look into and comment on hundreds of complaints it has received about the network's coverage of events during the convention. David?
Senator McGovern of South Dakota made his first speech since the convention and asked that the convention be abolished, finding it to be an insult to the intelligence of the American people. And he said the Electoral College should go along with it. He talked to a meeting of travel agents, and here's what he said.
The time has come in the United States for us to replace our present presidential nominating convention process with a direct primary. Now, there's nothing new about that recommendation. That's been considered by some of our most thoughtful political students here in the United States for many years. But I feel very strongly that the lesson of both Miami and of Chicago is that we need to find a more dignified and more effective manner for selecting our presidential candidates, one that brings the average citizen directly into the decision-making process. The American people have reached a level of political maturity where the kind of demonstrations and hoopla that goes on in national nominating conventions no longer serves the national interest nor the national taste, and indeed is an insult to the intelligence and the sense of dignity of many of our citizens. So I would hope that in the months ahead, the Congress of the United States and the American people and the various states would give serious consideration to the possibility of some kind of a national primary referendum for the selection of our presidential candidates.
He also said that even without the conventions, Nixon and Humphrey likely would have been nominated anyway in a primary. But he said in that case they would both have a stronger case to make in their campaigns had they been nominated by the American people.
Just a minute. Don't just set the table, set the mood. With Lipton beef stroganoff, complete with beef. One step, ready in 15 minutes. Tender beef, sour cream sauce, mushrooms, golden egg noodles.
Oh, you're great.
It's nothing, darling.
Please him with beef stroganoff, one of Lipton's new main dishes.
You can buy the freshest, just-picked greens. But a salad without wishbone is just a bowl of wet vegetables. New Green Goddess gives a salad spirit. Tender young onions, shallots, black pepper, and a hint of anchovy, all blended together for the creamiest new flavor. Choose Wishbone Green Goddess, because a salad without wishbone is just a bowl of wet vegetables.
The Huntley-Brinkley Report continues, brought to you by Digel, the extra-action antacid for more complete indigestion relief. Pleasant tasting, tablets, or liquid.
You get many different descriptions of a common complaint.
It's a stuffy, uncomfortable feeling for me.
It's a tense, burning sensation. Rotten, miserable. Whatever you call heartburn and acid indigestion, Digel relieves the symptoms. Digel, the extra action antacid, neutralizes excess acid and has the extra action of simethicone to break up bubbles of gas, to help relax your tense, tight stomach. Digel, the extra action antacid.
The Senate Judiciary Committee opened its mail this morning and found a letter from Justice Abe Fortas responding to the committee's invitation to him to come back and testify again. He declined, respectfully, he said. Another witness before the committee said Fortas had been paid $15,000 to appear several times during a 9-week summer course at the American University Law School. That's in Washington. Nobody on the committee seemed ready to say there was anything wrong with it, though they did seem to think the price was high. The Federal Communications Commission issued a statement critical of the National Broadcasting Company. It said Chet Huntley, in a radio broadcast, attacked a bill then up in Congress to put stricter sanitary rules on the meatpacking industry, while Huntley himself, it said, had a financial interest in a cattle business. It said, in the interest of fairness, Huntley's interest should have been stated, and so it said NBC failed to exercise due diligence. Huntley issued a statement saying he did have a small interest in cattle raising, but none in meatpacking, and said he had never said a word on the air calculated to bring him any financial gain. The State Department said again today, in answer to North Korean charges, that it knew of no violation of North Korean waters by the Pueblo or any other American ship. Chet?
A Japanese correspondent in Tokyo today said the Pueblo's commander, Captain Lloyd Butcher, had declared at a news conference that he and his men face either the death penalty or life imprisonment unless the United States admits responsibility for the alleged intrusion of the vessel into North Korean waters. But there have been reports that the United States and North Korea are near agreement on the Pueblo case, and already preparations have been made to receive the crew. NBC News correspondent John Rich reports.
This is the road from North Korea.
That bridge in communist territory is the one the Pueblo crewmen will probably cross when the North Koreans finally set them free. Naturally, nobody can yet be sure how it will happen, but most likely the 82 sailors and the body of the one who died will be handed back in the joint security area at Panmunjom. Here, at the exact center of the demilitarized zone, the United States maintains its only direct contact with the North Koreans. At least 20 private meetings have taken place in the Blue Building between American and North Korean officials trying to work out release of the men and their ship. Whether they come back in small groups or all at once, buses will take them quickly to the base camp a few miles south. Only when they drive past the minefields and cross the double line of white tape will they be back in the free world. From the base camp, helicopters will scoot the men 40 miles south to the 121st Evacuation Hospital between Seoul and Incheon. Doctors and nurses have been waiting for months to give the physical examinations which will show how the sailors survived their long captivity. Once the essential checks and paperwork are completed, the men will be off again. The last leg, a jet flight directly across the Pacific to California. This is John Rich, NBC News, at Panmunjom, Korea.
Israel reported today it was attacked by Arabs across 3 borders. An army spokesman said the Israelis were shot at by Egyptian snipers across the Suez Canal, exchanged artillery fire with Jordanians across the Jordan River, and fought an artillery duel with Syrians across the Yarmouk River. The Red Cross today suspended its mercy flights into Biafra because of heavy fighting between Nigerians and Biafrans near both landing strips available to its planes. Monday, the people of Greece will learn the contents of a new constitution written by the military regime. Even before it's made public, however, the military government is campaigning hard for it. Here is a report from NBC News correspondent Dean Braylis.
Greeks and Christians is the slogan of the regime. This is campaigning Greek style. The campaigner is the 55-year-old Deputy Prime Minister Stelianos Patakos. He has been going around the country rallying support for a new constitution that is supposed to give Greece re-election. Whether talking to a small group working in the vineyards or before large village crowds, Patakos hammered at one theme: the Constitution will be good for Greece. Time after time, Cretan farmers raise their hands to signify they will vote "ne," yes, for the new Constitution. The rural population accepts it on faith that Patakos and the regime are on their side. They've already had one benefit they understand. The national farmers' debt was wiped out, thus relieving them of a heavy financial burden. In urban Greece, the mood is somewhat different. People prefer to look upon the present political scene as spectators and not as participants. If the Constitution is accepted, it will be the 8th in modern Greek history. The regime is not taking anything for granted. They are going out into the rural areas where their strength lies with a vengeance. They carry with them the attraction that they have been fighters against Mussolini's invasion and fighters against the communist threat that followed. And in many ways, they have revived the bitter enmities created by the Civil War. But they think that's how they are going to win. What Greece wants, they say, is law and order, and no rewards for communism. And no one has appeared to challenge that. Dean Braylis, NBC News, Greece.
Said an unhappy driver named Duff. A broken down car's not enough. For even worse luck, I seem to be stuck with the wrong cigarette. Are these rough?
Oh, try a Newport. You like Newport. Smoother, more refreshing to your taste.
Your cigarette's not up to par. That's easy to fix. Here you are.
These Newports are great. Have one while you wait. I'll go see what's wrong with your car.
Oh, rich tobacco, menthol freshness brightens up your taste with every puff.
You, sir, are a genius, no doubt. Newport's worth shouting about. Smoother tasting by far. What was wrong with the car?
Your gas gauge was stuck. You ran out.
Oh, change to Newport. You like Newport. Smoother, more refreshing to your taste.
King size or 100s, Newport smooths and refreshes your taste.
The Defense Department said today that Major General Keith Ware, a Medal of Honor winner, was killed in Bin Long province when his helicopter crashed. Ware, who was 52, directed the defense of Saigon during the Tet Offensive last winter. He commanded the 1st Infantry Division. A private twin-engine jet trying to land at the Hollywood Burbank Airport today hit a factory, bounced through a parking lot, and struck 2 houses. Both occupants of the plane and a woman in a car were killed. A federal judge in Dallas has ordered a drug firm to cease making and marketing diet pills which contain a combination of thyroid and digitalis. Houston's latest heart transplant patient, James Albert Singleton, died today in Methodist Hospital. Singleton was the 12th person to receive a new heart in Houston and the 4th to die. President de Gaulle indicated today that French relations with Hungary cannot be improved as long as Hungarian troops are helping the Russians to occupy Czechoslovakia. Prices went up today on the New York Stock Exchange. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained more than 1.5 points, while the value of an average share of common stock increased 19 cents. Maurice Chevalier, the indestructible French entertainer, who is the very essence of Paris for millions of people, celebrated his 80th birthday last night in Paris. Or rather, he had it celebrated for him. Here is a report from NBC News correspondent Frank Burkholzer.
It took a score of Bluebell girls, each bearing 4 candles, to properly mark the 80 years of Maurice Chevalier. This was at a party on the Champs-Élysées in Paris at the Lido to celebrate his 80th birthday. His dinner partner was the young French singing star of today, Mireille Mathieu. Though it was a special night, the guests first saw the current Lido spectacle. After the show, the special ceremony for Chevalier's 80 years began. And then the girls and the birthday cakes. There was a nice speech by Maurice Chevalier, hoping, among other things, that the Lido would still have as good a show going on his 100th birthday. And finally, the birthday cake was served. And everyone gave Maurice Chevalier a tip of the hat, using a genuine Maurice Chevalier hat. Chevalier is even older than de Gaulle, but it looks as though he'll never arrive at real old age. Most of us like to think we'll still be chasing girls when we're 80 years old, but only Maurice Chevalier could still have the girls chasing him. Frank Burkholzer, NBC News, Paris.
Good night, David.
Good night, Chet.
And good night for NBC News.
Above all the noise, there's something new to be said about the ordeal of the American city. A compelling NBC News special tonight at 8:30, 7:30 Central Time.
This is Chet Huntley inviting you to stay tuned to Channel 4, Nashville, for Dateline Today.
What'll it be, sir?
Stand aside, Beauregard boy. Got 300 sick horses under that hood. Gonna put them out of their misery.
Hold on.
Out of the way, son. Been sick since I bought gas at Brinkley Creek.
Even good gas can put your horses off their feed, unless it's matched to your engine.
Keep talking, boy.
With Lion's 5 grades, your car gets what it needs. You don't overfeed it or underfeed it.
Sounds good. Fill her up.
You save money because you only pay for what your car can use. And